everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. So in this video I am going to be recreating the house that I grew up in. So this is the house that I lived in from the time that I was about 7 or 8 months old until a month before I turned 12 years old. So pretty much all of my childhood was spent in this house. Well, the house in real life, that is. And that house is just over 1,000 square feet, so it's pretty small. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, which is also what I've made here in The Sims. And yeah, so this house was originally built in 1947. So in the United States after World War II, we had what they called the baby boom, and basically it was all of the people who had been fighting in World War II who came home after the war and decided to settle down and have families and make babies. So thus the baby boom. And they all needed places to live. So along with the baby boom, there was also a big housing boom, which is what happened with this house in particular. So this house and a lot of the houses that are in the neighborhood that I grew up in were all built around the same time. They're all very similar in style. They're very very traditional, like Cape Cod looking types of houses. So yeah, I tried to replicate it as much as I could. So full disclosure, it's not exact. I mean, unless you are one of my family members or one of my friends who remembers me living in this house, probably aren't going to notice any differences because, you've never seen the real house. But so I tried to replicate it as closely as I could. But keep in mind, I haven't actually been in this house since I moved out of it in 1999. So it's been quite a few years since I've seen this house in real life. So a lot of it is done based off of my memory of it, and also from pictures that I have saved from real estate listings. So after my family sold this house and moved out, and then since then it's exchanged hands a few times. Most recently was about 8 or 9 years ago, I want to say, maybe a little bit less than that. It was, during that time when a bunch of houses did not do so well on the housing market, actually. And the people who were selling it at that point had done some pretty significant renovations. So the photos that I have of it are different than what I remember. Those people had completely redone the kitchen from what it looked like when I was a kid. So that type of thing is going to be a little bit different from the photos that I had. So a lot of this is really just done by my own memory. So it was kind of fun though, because for the most part, I remember a lot of this house. I mean, even though I started living there when I was very, very young, but by the time we moved out, I was obviously much older, and, typically when you're 10, 11, 12, in that age range, you have a pretty good memory of things. So, it wasn't too difficult for me to remember some things, but there were some details that I couldn't remember. So, for example, I couldn't remember what wall coverings we had in the dining room, so I had to text my mom, be like, okay, in our old house, what did we have on the dining room walls? And she was like, oh, it was, wallpaper with a chair rail, and she was like, why? So then I told her. But yeah, so a lot of this is just kind of done from my own memory. So in this living room here, where the little TV is, that actually was a full-on entertainment center, which we don't have in The Sims anymore. I think we had one. I know we had one in The Sims 2. I don't even know if that was the thing that we had in The Sims 3, but you know what I'm talking about, those big entertainment centers that kind of cover up an entire wall, and you don't really see them so much anymore. But that's what we had at that point. So I sort of made one out of the standard TV stand and then some shelves over top of it. And then on that entertainment stand in our house, we had our stereo, but obviously couldn't do that, so put the stereo next to it. Which actually, that stereo is pretty close to what we had at one point. And of course, we lived there for over a decade, so the things that we had changed. So yeah, this kitchen is interesting. So the biggest issue actually I had with doing this was keeping things to scale in real life and also what we have in The Sims. So it's laid out very similarly to what the kitchen actually was. Eventually, I have the door in the wrong spot. The door and the refrigerator get flipped, but I fixed that. But like we had a tiny little kitchen table just sort of shoved into like the corner there underneath the window, which most of the time we didn't actually use that table. Every once in a while we would sit there for breakfast, but for the most part we didn't. But the thing is that the chairs in The Sims 4 automatically stick out kind of far, so like you wouldn't be able to actually walk into the room. But in real life, we just shoved the chairs all the way up against the table and it fit just fine. So, you know, there's a little bit of like a suspension of disbelief, I guess you could say. Or like, at one point, I did end up kind of extending the upstairs a little bit to make the layouts of the bedroom work. That is the other thing. So this house originally, well, in real life, I guess you would say, is a story and a half house. So the first floor, you have full-size walls. Second floor, it's considered a half story. So we have like finished walls and everything up there. Like it's a fully habitable, livable place. But about halfway up the walls become slanted because they go into like the roof. Which in The Sims 4, and actually in any Sims game, we haven't been able to completely replicate that. So it's a little bit different. But I think it works out okay. So it was just like for my own personal memories, it's a little different. Like once you get into like our bedrooms, like the areas above our beds, the walls were slanted. So like there's not really supposed to be any decorations hanging on the walls there because that wasn't really a possibility because the walls were slanted there. But you know, that's okay. So yeah, so here the dining room is actually pretty close to spot on how it was. I added in additional windows there on the front because the window that we did have there just felt a little small. The other thing is that I at one point had a bookshelf in the dining room because at one point in my childhood we did have a bookshelf in there and we had books and also our pet fish lived on that bookshelf as well. But then I realized that for the purpose of playing The Sims, it would probably make more sense to have a computer desk there, which is what we eventually did have in that spot where the bookcase had been. So I swapped it out for like the one tile computer desk. And of course I put in the old style computer because, you know, we're talking like a computer from the late 90s. So that actually is pretty close to like what we had at that point. And actually the TV that I chose is pretty close to the TV that we had at that point as well, because we're talking about stuff that happened like 20 years ago. So, and then I kept the fish. I don't think we actually ever had the fish and the computer at the same time, but I liked the idea of having a fish there anyway, so, you know, I just kind of went with it. The other thing that is a little bit different with this house is that the real house has a basement and this house doesn't. I couldn't find a way to make the steps down to the basement work because of the amount of floor tiles that it requires in order for that to happen. I just couldn't find a spot. Like it would have cut into the dining room at a weird spot. Like that's where the staircase should be in this game. But it just, I didn't really care for it there, so I just left it out. But in real life, the house did have a basement, which was good because we had like laundry and storage. And then we had a playroom down there. So upstairs here we have the bedroom that I shared with my younger sister, and then across the hall is my brother's bedroom, and then on the first floor was my parents' bedroom. But actually originally this bedroom here that I shared with my sister was actually my parents' bedroom, and I had shared the bedroom across the hall with my brother. Well, actually when we first moved in it was just my room, and then my brother was born, and then I had to share a room with him. And the parents' bedroom on the first floor was actually our playroom. But then once my sister was born, then I moved across the hall to this bedroom, the pink bedroom, and which I got to choose the wall color, by the way, in case you couldn't tell, because I was like 7 at the time. I was like, you know, second grade. And my parents were like, okay, you get to, like, okay, you're gonna share a room with your sister, but we'll let you pick the wall color. And I was like, yeah, score. So I picked bubblegum pink because I had just found out that I was going to have to get braces, and that meant that I wouldn't be able to chew bubblegum. So I was like, well, if I can't have bubblegum, my walls are going to be bubblegum. So, yeah. But yeah, so then my parents moved their bedroom to the room downstairs, and then the playroom became in the basement. So, but yes, also, fun fact, in the bedroom that I'm sharing with my sister next to my bed is a little bunny ceramic toy, representative of my childhood stuffed animal, Floppy Bunny, who, you know, was like my loyal bunny. Still is to this day. I mean, you know, I don't sleep with him anymore, but I still have him. And then next to my sister's bed is a green dinosaur representative of Baby Bop from Barney, because that was one of her favorite animals. And I was going to put in a panda bear, but we actually don't have a panda bear stuffed animal. So, you know, because actually her technical favorite toy growing up was her stuffed panda, whose name was Teddy. Which, if you think about it, is a little confusing. That she named a bear that was a panda bear Teddy, but not a teddy bear Teddy. So this is now my brother's room. At various times, this room had very different theming, but closest to the time that we moved out of the house, it was themed after 101 Dalmatians. And he had like the desk set up that was like, one was with one chair painted red and the other one painted blue. It was a good time. We would use that a lot of times to like play school, where obviously as the oldest, I was the teacher because I was the smartest, so I had to be in charge. The other thing that I put in was I took the rug from, I think it was the toddler stuff pack, and shrunk it down. And so that's kind of like representative of, he had like one of those floor mats with cars that you could drive around and stuff, like the little Hot Wheels cars. And that was one of the things that, like, as siblings, we would all play together with, and relatively peacefully. So, because he had a bunch of cars, and then my sister and I had a bunch of Polly Pocket toys, which were like, you know, size appropriate at that point for one of those little Matchbox cars. So we would play with our Polly Pockets, and then Mike would play with the cars. And I personally would also play with the cars sometimes as well. But then my brother would get kind of bored with it, and then he would do things like make the cars explode and then kill all the Polly Pockets, and then my sister would get upset, and then, you know, Mom would have to intervene, and, you know, things got a little messy sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. But in general, that was like one of our favorite things to play together. So now this is the outside. So this house had a detached garage. And so going along the one side of the house, there was a driveway that went all the way to the backyard. And then we had a couple of different fences. So the shared fence next to the garage was like a brown fence. And then we also had a big brown gate, kind of separating the back of the house from the front of the house, which actually as a kid was awesome, because that meant that we had like a safe place to ride our bikes and stuff, like while staying still on our property. And we didn't have to like worry about like riding around the neighborhood or riding on sidewalks and stuff. And then kind of along the back and then the other side of the house, we had like a chain link fence, which we don't actually have in The Sims 4. So I just picked a fence that kind of looked like it could have been there. I mean, like, you know, not everything's gonna be perfect. But yeah, so then here in the backyard we had a little patio table area and an old school style like charcoal, actually it wasn't a charcoal grill, it was a gas grill. And then our air conditioning unit, and then I do put in my parents at various times. For some reasons growing up, my parents always seemed to have blue cars. So I scaled up, you know, the toy cars, picked ones that were blue, and then put them in. And so the driveway had like a little pull-off spot because our garage was only a one-car garage. Well, technically it was a car and a half, but like you could only fit one car in there. That just like the half was like, ooh, extra storage. So yeah, so a lot of times that little pull-off spot, we would have one of the cars parked there. Other times we would have it set up with like a little wading pool in the summertime, because why not? We were kids. We also had like a toddler basketball hoop as well, kind of in that same pull-off area, which we don't actually have a toddler basketball hoop, but we have a full-size basketball hoop, so I put that in instead. And then here on the front porch, we had like this little planter box that was brick for some reason. I don't know where that came from. It was always like nice, and like, you know, my mom always planted like pretty pink flowers there. and then we had a couple of white chairs on the front porch. We used to have 2 adult-sized chairs and then 3 kid-sized chairs, and we would play on the front porch and turn it into either a minivan, which in the mid-90s was like a hot thing to have. Everybody had minivans if you were cool. Or we would turn it into a school bus, where of course I, as the oldest, was the driver. So this is my childhood home. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this build. I had so much fun, like reliving old memories and, just recreating my home as much as I possibly could. So if you would like to download my childhood home, you can do so on the Sims 4 gallery. The easiest way is by clicking on the link in the description box below this video, or you can search for it on the gallery using the hashtag MrsTomato1018 or my username, which is also MrsTomato1018. And as always, there's no custom content in it. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do so down below. I put up a new video every Tuesday. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!